In our next session, Breaking the Cycle, Strategies to Overcome Mental Health Disparities in Marginalized Student Communities. We turn our focus to the unseen barriers that impact the lives and the futures of countless students. Did you know that students from marginalized communities face significantly higher mental health challenges, yet often have the least access to support? This stark reality poses a complex challenge, but also an opportunity for profound change. To take this discussion forward, let's call to our stage our moderator, Casanova Green, Director, First Year Experience, Diversity and Inclusion at Hocking College, and our esteemed panelist. Welcome to the stage.
Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing? Good. All right. We're going to do something different. I'm going to moderate from down here. Is that all right with y'all? Listen, because I know that this is the last panel. I know some of us want to get our awards. And I know some of us want to have a little sip, a little something in celebration of that award. So we're going to go ahead and keep this moving. Can we give a hand to our production team, please? If no one else has told you thank you so far, thank you. Listen, I've been on that side of an event, and it is not easy. So shout out to all y'all. We really do appreciate you. All right, so my name is Casanova Green, and I am the Director of First Year Experience, Diversity and Inclusion at Hocking College in Nelsonville, Ohio. Outside of the academia realm, I also serve as the lead pastor of True Vision Christian Community in Lancaster, Ohio, and as the vice presiding bishop of the Catetismos Collective housed in Columbus, Ohio. And I am honored and truly excited to moderate the panel. So before we jump any further, let's go ahead and hear from our esteemed panelists.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me and thank you for having us. My name is Eunice Ajay. Actually, I'm a teacher with the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department. So I work with the corrections and I teach the inmates. And so that's what I do. And I'm also a founder for the Christ Impact Life Foundation, where we help with school mentorship and mentorship programming. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taekwon Payne. I'm the Dean of School Culture at Ivy Hill Preparatory Charter School in Brooklyn, New York, and also CEO of Love Pain Productions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jasmine Burns. I am a licensed psychologist, and I'm the owner and CEO of Burns Virtual Psychological Solutions, which is a private practice. And we specialize in testing, specifically autism and immigration. We offer other services as well. And I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas.
Hi, my name is Tracy Ozer, and I am the founder and CEO of both Postvention Collective and Journey Through Grief. I provide suicide bereavement education in schools and businesses.
All right, wonderful. Let's give our panelists a hand really quick. All right, so before we jump into this, can we do some housekeeping real quick? We can do some housekeeping. All right, so listen, this is a conversation today. I know we've heard a lot of wonderful knowledge and wonderful information, but this is a topic that's worth talking about. So we really want to hear from you. We have timed this out to make sure there is time for questions, and we want to hear your questions. So here's what I'd like for you to do. If something sparks your interest, go ahead, write it down, burn it to your memory, text yourself if you have to. And then when we come to question and answers, we will go ahead and jump into that. But we really want to hear from you and make sure we want to create a more relaxed atmosphere. So can we chillax? This is the last session of the day. So we're going to have fun while we're talking about this very important and vital topic. So we have a purpose statement prepared. In this post-COVID world, we have become more aware of the many gaps underrepresented and marginalized people face in terms of education. However, there is nothing new under the sun. These disparities, which have been around for decades, are now calling our attention. Myriad data shows that students who are affected by the educational interruptions of COVID-19 are underperforming at all academic levels and are not performing at a social level commensurate with their grade and age level. Now let's factor in mental health problems that students face due to their situations. We see both empirical and qualitative evidence that students, particularly those who are experiencing poverty and are racially minoritized, are exhibiting behaviors that indicate the need for help. Suffice to say, the old methods are not working and change is necessary. The goal of this panel and the discussion from it is to move from identification to action. There we go. From an intersectional standpoint regarding mental health and improve academic and personal outcomes through the lenses of differentiated instruction and student conduct. All right, everybody? All right, so let's go ahead and start. This question is for all of our panelists. The question I have for all of you is, what are some of the cultural and social stigmas students face regarding mental health and other health outcomes, and how do they affect the overall learning experience?
I can start. Being a dean in an elementary school, that's like the entry level of schooling other than like pre-K. So when students are struggling in the classroom, they can't acclimate to the expectations of the classroom, and we notice that there's a gap between like them and other students. The We try to get them the support that they need, and the parents, when they hear some of the things and the strategies that we want to use, they the stigma starts to come out. So are you trying to say that my kid is special? Are you trying to say that my kid is not smart? Are you trying to say that my kid is dumb? And that's not the case. So what I try to do is like explain to parents, like, your student needs some extra support. We want them to be successful. They want to be successful. So these are the things in place that we want to do to support your students. So it's all about support. The stigmas have lasted forever. Even as myself growing up and having anger issues, and my mother telling me that I needed to find ways and strategies to calm down, and my school just telling me like, yeah, no, we're just gonna put you in a smaller classroom to 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 take you away from the general public education. And my mother like, well, no, he just has an attitude problem. so so like the stigmas that I see in my experience are parents like not wanting their students to get the support because they feel like, oh, you're trying to say that my kid is dumb.
So thank you for sharing that. So I'm coming at it from a diagnostic lens, right? As a psychologist, a testing psychologist, I'm getting a lot of children coming to my private practice in need of a diagnosis so that they can get supports and services and things like that. And so one of the things that I'm noticing, and research shows this as well, is that particularly with Black and Brown boys, they're getting diagnosed with things like conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, and it's a label, and they're being seen as bad kids. And these children are internalizing those labels, and they start to act on those labels, right? They start acting out more because, like, I'm already a bad kid, so I'm gonna just act like a bad kid. I think, in terms of placement, things like emotionally disturbed classrooms, right? When a child gets placed in an ED classroom, that's something that they're also internalizing. Again, I'm a bad kid, something is wrong with me. And research is showing that a lot of children are being underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed. They don't have ODD or conduct disorder, it's PTSD, it's autism, it's an intellectual developmental disorder, right? And so when I work with these families, I have to provide a lot of psychoeducation of like, no, your kid's not broken. Your child is neurodiverse. It's a beautiful thing. Let's celebrate it. And then I get a lot of parents saying, well, my kid needs an IEP. I don't want my child to have this label. What can I do? And then that's when I'm coming in with my team, and we serve as advocates for the parents and working with the schools and really explaining like these are the supports that the child's need, the children need. So instead of tying a label and just making them feel awful, and let's support them, let's educate them on their beautiful differences, and explain those things to the parents and educators as well.
So, of course, I work in the field of suicide bereavement, which is suicide postvention. And I know that there's a lot of talk within and training within the schools about prevention. Unfortunately, we don't talk about loss. And so it's important to change the messaging that postvention is prevention. When we lose students, when we lose people, communities in general, to suicide, I think our rates are up around 46,000 people a year. 135 people are affected by one loss. So what happens is we have students who come to school who are, maybe they're acting out, maybe they're fighting, maybe they're not turning their homework in, right? And it might be tied to grief, So if you know that you have someone in your school who's lost someone to suicide, and you see a behavioral change, it's important to reach out and just check on them because, as we know, kids can't always regulate how they're feeling or how to, combat the feelings that they're having. So, I go in and I educate schools and communities to have these conversations. And I know, talking about stigma, it has to do with, we can't talk about it in schools. We don't do that. We got to find a way to do it. Maybe we find a way to do it, not use the word suicide. I don't know, but we need to have these conversations because they're important.
Okay, thank you. And also coming from the section of carceral system or the correctional system, which is quite different, and we mostly don't talk about it, but it's really a serious issue because we have a lot of mental health issues going on. And that I want to give a little data. So, U.S. Prison and jail, according to the Prison Policy Initiative, they incarcerate a high number of people that has mental health issues going on. So, from American Psychological Association, they report that 64% of jail inmates and 54% of state prisoners and 45% of federal prisoners have reported mental health concerns. And this shows that there's a high amount of mental health issues going on. And so if we don't tackle it from that point and they re-enter the society, it's going to cause chaos. There will be no safety again. So from the carceral point, we have education going on and we have mental programs. So I do the education. I'm a teacher with the carceral system and I teach the inmates. So teaching them and also having mental programs going on helps a lot to solve these kind of issues. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for your responses and for your insight. So we're going to go ahead and we talked about two prongs in our introduction. So we're going to go ahead and move the conversation to differentiated instruction and IEP and 504 plans. But if you're not familiar with that terminology, differentiated instruction is pretty much instruction to meet the need of the student. And one of the ways to ensure that is through an IEP or an individualized education plan or a 504 plan, which deals with other health issues that affect students' learning. So we have two questions for this section. The first one is this: how can we work to show students, parents, and caregivers that IEPs and 504 plans are beneficial in addressing students' needs? So I want to give this to Taekwon and to Jasmine.
Um, I know of this really dope program called IEPME, which is based in California, but they source out nationwide. They actually help parents and schools like educate themselves on IEPs and 504 plans. So I think it starts there. Like I'm going back to like stigmas. The stigmas happen because of ignorance. So if parents don't understand or know what an IEP or 504 plan is, then they're of course they're going to think about their experience in special ed, and I don't want that for my kid, because of like their background, their history. So it like education, explaining and supporting land parents know like this is for your kid, right? The 504 is accommodations. If your student needs more time to take a test, they need that time. Let's give them that time. An independent educational plan, your student learns differently, so let's try to make sure we give them what they need so that they can learn the information and gain the knowledge that we're trying to give them on a day-to-day basis. So that's something that we could do to like support parents in schools to educate on these IEP and 504 plans.
And I just want to piggyback off that. I love hearing about that program. I'm always trying to explain to families their rights. Like, I'm trying to empower these families to give them a voice so that they can give their child a voice, right? And so one of the things that I'm always sharing is understood.org. I'm always telling families go to understood.org because they show what an IEP is, what a 504 plan is, how to start the process, and really just taking that hand holding approach with parents, I think is really important. Because again, like advocacy, education, like this is how we can get these parents to understand that their child does need support and these are the supports available. And if your child needs support, it's not a bad thing. And I really, the thing that I love about IEPs and 504s is it's tailored to the child. Um, you were saying at the beginning that we're doing a lot of things that's there, it's just clearly not working. We cannot have some cookie cutter approach for our children. We have to have tailored interventions through not just schools but healthcare as well, all over the place. And I think the more that we can explain that to families, and let them know the different types of services, the better. Because I have a lot of families that come to me and they've never even heard of an IEP. They've never heard of a 504. So I do feel like as a whole, we can do better at really educating families and empowering families.
So just to piggyback on that, because we have a little bit of time in this segment, really under giving people the understanding that in terms of mental health, the brain is an organ. I always tell people if you skin your knee, you get a band-aid, right? If you have cancer, you'll do everything in your power to do with that. But when it comes to matters of the brain, we ignore it because oh, it's just your brain. It's an organ and it's in need of help and support. And to give students the opportunity to learn effectively, we have to meet that need. And the IEP and the 504 is a legal contract saying that the school has to abide by that need. And I think it gives a deeper perspective to it because the stigma is, oh, you trying to say my baby dumb. Yeah, no, it's true. Why are you trying to say my baby? I'm not saying your baby dumb. Your baby is intelligent, but we have to meet the need because the brain needs the need met. So let's go ahead and transition from IEPs to 504s to the core of our discussion, which is differentiated instruction. So, how can we show teachers and other stakeholders? So, we're looking at school districts, we're looking at community organizations, anyone that impacts the educational space. How can we show them that differentiated instruction is for all students? How can we show that differentiated instruction is for all students? We'll go ahead and give the mic to Tracy, and then Jasmine.
So I want to piggyback really quick off what Jasmine said, that we can't have a cookie cutter approach to supporting our children, whether it's emotionally or academically. We all know each child is different. They all have different learning styles. And I think, we tend to just, due to time constraints, due to all the different things we have going on in our day, it's easier just to say, let's just do it all the same way. Um, a story I have is my daughter, she was on an IEP, and I didn't know what an IEP was. I had to kind of figure it out myself. I mean, I got the high level, you know, she's on one. It was basically it. And that's going to help her. Okay. Well, when she transitioned from junior high up to high school, the administration didn't move the IEPs all up to the new school until October. So she was about 6 weeks into school before they even recognized that she should have been on an IEP. So that put her behind, in relation to the other students. And she was telling her teachers, wait, I'm on an IEP, because she'd been on an IEP since elementary school. And so she was telling her teachers, I'm on an IEP. I should be able to have extra time to complete my tests, etc. And they said, well, we don't have that. And so she was failing for 6 weeks until her IEP showed up. And then they had to do a bunch of work, to remove bad grades and have her retake tests. And it was a whole, mess. So we need to, and of course, this affected her self esteem. Okay, so for 6 weeks, she thought, I'm failing. They don't like me. They don't want to listen to me. And those are the kind of, emotional disparities that we have with these kids if we're not meeting the needs. So somehow we have to get some communication between districts and psychologists and the teachers themselves to make a healthier impact.
Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things that I'm noticing is, I've had way too many families tell me, well, the school didn't want to diagnose my child. They didn't want to do a psychoeducational evaluation because they needed a medical diagnosis first. And I'm like, that's not right. Like the school still has to go through their own evaluation. Like this report can help, you can share this report that I give you with the school, but they have their own process, right? And so I know a lot of families are coming in just really confused because there's a lot of misinformation or just someone saying something to, I don't know, just keep it moving. Like we don't have to deal with this, right? And I think a part of that comes from, and we all know this, right? There's a lack of resources for educators right now. It is awful. And so you at the previous panel was talking about exhaustion, right? Like this is a marathon, right? And we need to be careful that we're not letting like our own emotions and how we're feeling impact our care of the children. I sat in on an IEP once with my family engagement specialist sitting up here, and we were struggling because there was a teacher who was clearly exhausted, and she was saying some very unkind things about the child with the mother present at the IEP. He's defiant, he doesn't want to listen, he's just this, he's just that. And I don't think she liked me by the end of the IEP. But one of the things that I was saying is, he's autistic. I think he's having a hard time in your really bright classroom. I think he's anxious when he's in these big, group settings. Things weren't being tailored to him, right? And so in the IEP, I helped the mom advocate for her son. We helped the parent advocate for her son. And again, it's just really helping educators like just remember you have to tailor, you have to meet the need. You have to understand the why behind the behavior and don't just focus on what the behavior is.
Awesome. Thank you for your insight. So now, since you talked about behavior, we're going to go ahead and transition to our second prong, which is addressing student conduct. Okay, so who has ever had to deal with a defiant student? Raise your hand. Who's ever had to deal? I'm going to put my foot up because it's been the story of my career. And I took classroom management classes. But prior to going into higher education, I taught high school. So we had those PDs about classroom management, and I tell incoming teachers like everything you learn from those, forget it because it just won't work. And they're like, why? Because it's designed for the ideal student, and there's no such thing as the cookie cutter ideal student. So one of the barriers that we see regarding people, particularly racially minoritized communities, is that there is an uptick in student conduct issues, student conduct referrals. I know I saw a statistic that black girls are 6 times more likely to be suspended in school. So we need to begin to really look at this from a mental health standpoint. So we're going to look at this usual 2 questions in the segment. So the first question I have is for Taekwon and Eunice. Why are restorative justice practices vital in supporting students dealing with mental health issues?
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to come from the section of the IEPs. So I think that if we tackle the IEPs from the mainstream school session, that is going to actually prevent them from coming to the way to incarceration, because I'm always seeing my students and they're like, oh, I didn't have money, and so I had to do drugs, I had to do this when I was in school, I had to follow friends, bad friends, and then I ended up in a jail or in a prison. So if we are able to tackle from that aspect, from the main school stream system, and then have them to know what they're about and to also help them in their special needs, it will help a lot. And restorative justice is very important, because once they get there and they have all the resources they need, like mental health programs. So where I am, we have career guidance, we have mental health programs running for students who are also parents, and we have nurturing fathers and all that. So that helps them to guide and shape their lives. So I think it's very important. And I've seen a lot of students transforming from what they were to becoming better people in the society. Yeah.
Yeah. I think restorative justice practices are vital because it's a proactive strategy. It allows you to build relationships with your students. One, if there's something that happens in your classroom, and what is the impact of that? How did it make everyone feel? Right, restorative justice practices does that. So it allows you as the teacher in that classroom or as a leader in that school to one, know your staff, because I this is what I do at my school. Is I have restorative circles with staff. If staff are not getting along, we're going to sit down, we're going to be in a circle, and we're going to talk about what's happening. What is the impact of this? How does it affect your students? How does it affect the community? Same thing with the student community. Every morning, students are coming in uh, for a morning meeting, and they're participating in circles. One, to share with each other, to for also for teachers to information gather. How are my students feeling this morning? How what is going to be my approach today? Um, if there's an issue in the classroom, like I said, what is the impact of that? Collaborative problem solving. So it's restorative justice practices are for the individual and for the community as a whole. Um, so it's vital because it allows the community to be open, feel safe, and have an open dialogue and communication about what's going on around them and around us.
That is so true. The point of justice is bringing things back to balance, right? So if I punish you but don't give you space to grow and develop and to move forward, I'm not bringing you back to balance. So thank you for your wonderful insight. Our next question. No, we're gonna have a little fun with this because we have time. Buffer time. Like we got some time. We can work this now. So, so we eventually was for three of you. We're gonna open up to everybody. How can we make the distinction between conduct-based behavior versus trauma-induced actions? I've said somebody like, yes. How so? Um, because I've seen videos where actually, you know what? I'll tell you about a real life example real quick. When I mean real quick, I mean real quick. I'm not gonna sit here and talk for 10 minutes. I ain't gonna do it. Um, there was a situation with a student, and I was working in my office, and the office manager said, "Hey, we need your help with a student situation," and I'm like, "Okay." And I walk out of my office like, "There's a student who's refusing to leave," and I'm like, "Okay." So I go to my colleague's office and I peek around the corner and I see who it is. I'm like, "Hey, come walk with me." Okay, he left the office. They're looking at me like, "What?" And I began to talk to him, see what was going on. And then I was out one day, and I guess there was a situation with the same student and with another office in the school. And everybody's like, "Oh, he was talking crazy." But I noticed that when he doesn't feel like he's being helped, he shuts down. So they were about to throw the book at him, and I looked at my boss and said, "Before you do that, this is why." And she said, "You go ahead and handle it." So we had a conversation. He's been great ever since. But what if I wasn't there to be able to say, "This is why"? So really looking at the conduct discussion. So ultimately, how can we ensure that we are not punishing responses to trauma while maintaining the norms of appropriate conduct? So whoever wants to take it, go ahead, take it.
Well, something that I do when a student is sent to my office and sent out to me is usually because of like a disruption. Again, it's elementary school. Uh, it's probably crying, screaming. Um, so what triggered it is my first question. What triggered that student? Why is this happening? Jasmine said earlier we have to find out the why. So like it's all effective questions, right? Restorative justice practices is about asking effective questions. How what happened? Why did it happen? How did it happen? Who was there? And then you go on with next steps. So that's my approach. I attack the why. Like first thing, why did that happen? You had a test in your class today. Um, this student has test anxiety. Did what was your morning meeting like this morning? Were they there? The student is normally late to school. No, they were not there. Okay, so they needed a break, right? I have three categories of consequences, which is take a break, loss of privilege, you break it, you fix it. And that's how I approach. When I'm talking with the student, what happened? What did you do? What was the impact of what you've done? All right, and depending on the age range, I never do it with kindergarten or first grade, or and depending on the second grader by maturity, but third, fourth, and fifth grade, now you're going to choose your consequence, right? You broke the community norms within your classroom. Now, what is going to be your consequence? And 9 times out of 10, I guarantee, and we had this conversation earlier at a table where we were talking about the panel, kids are give themselves harsher consequence than I would give them in the first place. So so I pull them back. Okay, great. Now you had a student tell me he needed to be suspended for 5 days. I was like, absolutely not. That's not gonna happen. I need you here in the school building. Um, but let's talk about what you did and how you need to fix it. So if you disrupted your classroom for 10 minutes, that is 10 minutes of learning time. What are you going to do to give back to the community, to your classmates, to your teacher, to yourself? You just took time away from yourself, right? And if it is because of like something that they had no control over, then it's like, all right, great. So you were anxious about this. Let's talk about that. What strategies do you have? Do you need to talk to someone? We have our school social workers. We do SEL check-ins. I have that as a category for teachers to choose if they see a student struggling. Right, this is a social emotional check-in, and then they can speak to me, or they can speak to our school social worker. So um, that's like my approach to disruptive behaviors, right? Attacking the why. I want students to be in my office no longer than 10-15 minutes. I have a trampoline in my office for them to like calm themselves down before these conversations happen, and then as they're tying their shoes, now I'm asking questions because now they're distracted, and then they can talk about what's going on. Not thinking about it, they're just going to talk about what happened. So that's like my approach to those behaviors.
I just want to also say my approach in terms of the carceral system. So already, whilst incarcerated, they have like high depression, and sometimes they have the behavior is so strong that they go into holes and all that, and they have conflicts with the officers. So when they come to class, I personally don't call them inmates. I see them as students. So I call them students, and that alone gives them some relief. When they come for class, and we actually talk about what's going on in their life for about 30 minutes, and they come out to talk about everything that is going on that is bothering them, and we talk about how to solve it. So I come to their level to actually speak to them on what is going on, try to give some form of encouragement, some form of empowerment to them. So that actually helps, because before they can actually attend class and listen to what you're saying and all that, they need to actually rest and have some kind of peace. So that's what I do. And then I see that I relate more to them. So most students who are actually going to the hole because of some misbehavior and some conflict with officers, when they come to class, they are very, very sober. So I think that form of aspect where I have one-on-one interaction and delve deeply into their matters helps a lot in transforming them. Yeah.
And I think, a big thing to remember is the family. A lot of stuff is happening at home that we do not see. And so I don't think I shared this with you guys, but I actually used to be a substitute after school teacher. A surprise. Um, and so one of the things that I remember, it was kindergarten. I was teaching kindergarten class. And there was this young boy who was always just, well, so and so, he's doing this again. He's throwing chairs again. Da, da, da. And so I went up and I talked to him and I was like, "Hey man, I noticed you're doing this a lot. Like what's going on?" And he's like, "I'm not going to talk to you." And so what I started to do was I was giving him like one-on-one time with me, where we would just talk about anything and everything. And I was giving him positive attention, right? And what I learned later on was that his father was incarcerated and his mother was working, and so he wasn't getting any attention at home, and the attention that he was getting was negative attention. And so that was carrying over into the schools when the teachers were yelling at him and he's sending him to the office and blah blah blah. Again, like I said at the beginning, he thought he was a bad child. He did not think he deserved positive attention and love, right? And so I love that you talked about the SEL learning. Like I think social emotional learning should be built into all curriculum because that's where the love is that we can show these kids. um, and I think just being able to have check-ins with parents of like what is going on at home. Little Jimmy might be coming in, falling asleep in class or crying or whatever, not because he's being bad, but because maybe mom is out working and he had to take care of his brothers and sisters and he didn't get a full night's sleep and he's exhausted and he had to walk to school and all these basic needs that he had to meet, right? And so I think if we can remember that the little children are human beings with real needs, right? I think that can go a really, really long way. And then also paying attention to those mental health signs. I think the more training, I would love to go into schools and do talks about these are the signs to look for. Look for those behavioral changes. Like you had talked about that as well. So did you, Taekwon? And just if there's a drastic change in a student, pick up on that and explore that.
So, to piggyback on what you said about little Jimmy, little Jimmy might be coming to school and just lost his uncle to suicide. And you may not know that because it's not in his immediate household, but it's certainly affecting his household. And so when we're looking at discipline, again, I'll reiterate what I said before, you got to ask those questions. You got to kind of dig in. And again, I know you guys don't have the resources that you need to have, nor do you have the time that you need to have. So, I like to go into schools. I like to go in and try to talk to administrations. I say try because it's not always a welcoming topic because suicide is scary, right? But it happens. And grief and loss is very impactful. This is a complex trauma. This isn't just, their grandma that they saw once every couple years passed away and, they just blow it off and move on. This might be their dad, this might be their mom. And it's so, like I said, it's so complex that we need to look at those things and we need to, maybe have those one-on-one conversations. You know, talk about regulation, things like that. Um, yeah.
All right, so Jasmine said I had to say this. I'm going to say it now. So pretty much what they're all talking about, what we're all talking about is pretty much quit attacking the fruit and get to the root. Because if you get to the root of a thing, okay, they can't see me on the YouTube. Hold on. If you can get to the root of a thing, the fruit will deal with itself. So write that down, tweet it, whatever you got to do. All right, so real quick, because I know y'all. I feel the questions coming at me. So really quick, we're gonna go briefly do our closing question, and then we're gonna open it up to all y'all. So you've already said this, but give a quick bite. What are you doing to ensure that the academic space is a place of learning and a space for growth and healing for underrepresented students facing trauma or mental health needs? And also, how can we connect with you to learn more?
So, like I said, I'm going into schools that will have me to talk to administration and the faculty on what needs to happen regarding suicide loss. You can reach me at tracy@postventioncollective.com. Real quick, up in Spokane, where I moved down from to Missouri, I got a call and I had some counselors who had kids that needed support after school. And they're like, what do we do? How can we create a support group? So I put together a program for them, and they were using that up until early spring. And it was much, it was very helpful because now the kids had an outlet after school to, um, you know, tell everybody what was going on with them and how they needed the help.
So through my private practice, I said earlier I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas, but my practice is completely virtual, right? So I can work with people in about 47 states now. And so through my practice, I am, doing talks with, educators about like, again, the mental health signs, educating families about IEPs and 504s, and just doing a lot of, just education and training. So much so that I'm actually going to be starting a second business this year where it is just all education and training because I do want to have those more, just intimate connections with educators and again teaching what mental health signs to look out for, talking about trauma informed care, the social, the SEL, social emotional learning. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Jasmine Burns. You can look me up at Burns Virtual Psychological Solutions. at BV Psych Solutions on Instagram. But I think in the back we have some pamphlets as well.
Uh, what I'm doing at Ivy Hill is every day, like I said, like our morning meetings, students are focusing on SEL and community circles, so that they are getting that social emotional knowledge that they need to be able to express themselves, to talk about how they're feeling. I'm 33 years old. I didn't have an emotional vocabulary until I was 30. So every single day, I'm making sure that my students are expressing themselves. How are you feeling this morning? Good morning. How are you feeling? Every Friday, I greet at the door to welcome students in, and it's a fist bump and good morning, how are you? And they answer or they just shake their heads yes. But that's what I'm doing every day. We have our school has our community values, which is league values: leadership, excellence, academic growth, and confidence, with a capital E at the end to spell league. And with that, I connected those league values to our SEL curriculum so that we can have a character development curriculum that students participate in every single morning, and that is like our morning meeting. So that's what I'm bringing to the work, and that's what I'm pushing, because I don't want a student to grow up like me and gain their emotional vocabulary at 30 years old. So that's what I'm doing.
What I'm also doing is I'm a teaching staff at the Sheriff's Department, Suffolk County in Boston, Massachusetts. So, and we also invite volunteers to come to have programs with us in terms of mental health, in terms of education. So anything you want to do in terms of mental health space, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm also looking at also establishing re-entry services outside what I do, so that we can have career guidance, and then for inmates who are formerly incarcerated, so that they can be stabilized in the society. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and open up the floor for questions. Listen, might have a whole lot of questions and a little bit of time. So, if you would, brevity is the soul of wit. All right, so I love y'all. Land the plane. Everybody say land the plane.
Definitely.
Land that plane. We don't need a manifesto, preamble, constitution, declaration of independence, and the like. All right. So, what questions do you have? Raise your hand. I'll come to you. No question. Oh, we got someone. Let me come over to you, because I know YouTube wants to hear you. So, I see. I told y'all this felt like Phil Donahue back in the day.
Hey, I just wanted to ask, with your morning meetings, do you guys do that? Is it all one grade level? Is it intergrade level? And do they have an opportunity for the older kids to help educate the younger kids as you're working through this?
Yeah, so it's by classroom. The format is the same for each classroom, but the morning meeting looks different. Teachers have different ways that they run it. Some use PowerPoints, but the format is the same. It's the morning message, the greeting, which is all done in the circle, and then we are beginning to do like upper school kids coming down to lower school, mainly for our English language learners. So we have a lot of students coming in who speak French and Creole. So I also have fifth graders, fourth graders who speak that fluently. So I have them come down and translate for those students on Fridays. That's when the morning meetings are more intricate and they're a little longer. Monday to Thursday, they're about 20 minutes. On Friday, we stretch it to 30, so then that's when they come down and they can be a part of it. So it's not for every student, but for our English language learners, we have student interpreters that come down and help out.
All right, wonderful. So we have a two-part question over here. Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, y'all. So, what I heard a lot of discussion on this panel is people being disruptive in class, and no preamble. But somebody who was in those classes but was chatty, women and girls present differently. Is that something that you include in your conversations with families? Because it's definitely something I don't hear enough.
I can talk about this again from a diagnostic perspective. Autism and ADHD neurodivergence is something that I specialize. I love to talk about, and I do a lot of psychoeducation with families of this does look different in girls, and that's we talk a lot about how girls are typically misdiagnosed, undiagnosed. I actually do autism testing and testing across the lifespan, right? So I'm getting a lot of adult women coming to me and they were like, my whole life I was really chatty in school and I was always getting in trouble, but I thought something was just wrong with me and now I'm depressed and I'm anxious. And then I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and all of these things because there's a lot of secondary health issues that are coming into play when there's a misdiagnosis or, no diagnosis at all. And so I'm trying to really educate families and educators when I'm in these IEP meetings of this is how it can look in the child. It's not going to be this stereotypical thing all the time. So again, if you can catch these signs, don't shame the child, because I've seen that a lot too. Don't shame the child in front of the class. Explore this with the child, help the child understand their whatever neurodivergence or why ever they're chatty, and then support them, meet the need.
Also, got your part 2 ready?
Yeah, thank you. And I identify as neurospicy.
Love
Makes
it,
me
love
happy.
it.
So this isn't really a question, but just kind of throw it out there for something to think about. So what I noticed was helpful was like now I wasn't diagnosed until my late 20s and then my early 30s. And I was told that I could never go to college. I now have a doctorate. And if you can find, thank you. If you can find somebody, a parent or community member who was successful, but later in life, after having that challenging kind of K through 12 experience, it makes a huge difference connecting with parents because we, as you mentioned, didn't have the same experience as we're giving students now. And being able to talk to people about they're still going to be able to be successful and we're going to be able to help them earlier and let them kind of get out those anxieties in a real conversation, I found helpful.
And I appreciate, I'm just going to say, there are organizations out there like Warmline. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but these are families who have lived experiences, right? And they're able to talk about it with these other families. Our family engagement specialist, like that's something that she does too. We're actually hoping to grow that department in the company because we want to have more families here like, your child can get married, can go to college, can do all of the, can cook, can maybe even live independently, right? We just have to break the stigma, those stereotypes that because this label is on this kid, they can or cannot do something. So it's very important. Thank you for saying that.
The Neurospicy team thanks you.
Yes.
All right, we have time for maybe 1 minute. Oh, I'm coming over to you. I like this. This is fun.
Get those steps in.
Hey. Go ahead.
Hi. So being educators, being teachers, and dealing with this population, how do you guys take care of yourselves?
Oh, it got quiet. Oh.
Crickets and okay, y'all go ahead.
Okay, so I'm coming from the cultural system. It's quite a challenge to like listen to a lot of students talking about their issues and what got them there, and then you come home and you're thinking about all that is going on in their lives. For me, I just, from my Christian background, I pray because it's not easy because you listen to all of them and they, how did they get here? Sometimes they are even 18, so young, and then they are just sentenced like 10 years, and you just like, they're just wasting their lives away. Sometimes it's quite a challenge, but yeah, I just think about it and just pray, and then just sometimes I have to take a break because it's not easy to actually teach people in the cultural space. Yeah, thank you.
Oof, how do I take care of myself? I'm struggling with that, to be honest. No, I am honestly really struggling with it. But what I do try to do, I'm also an artist, so like my art is very important to me. So like that's my when I get like right after work, 4 o'clock hits, and I open my phone and I like on my route home, I'm reading a script. I get home. I'm probably gonna go into a production meeting to work on my craft with like my nonprofit that I partner with for my production companies. Like that is like my form of taking care of myself. It is also like another form of work. So naps. So naps are essential to me. My phone is on constantly on do not disturb, and if you call me twice, I will put it on airplane mode so you can't get through. But that's how I like try to take care of myself. Especially my daughter is like my instant like recharger. Like when I see her, that recharges me. That gets me up and gets me going. We do swim lessons every Tuesday, so like that's like our important time. So that's like my form of like taking care of myself. Those are the things that I do.
So I always tell my team, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you need to know what fills your cup. So for me, wine, um, but
Whiskey.
whiskey.
That will be about 30 minutes.
Very soon. Very soon.
Right. But no, but other things, and my cup, what fills my cup has changed. So now I have a 2-year-old, right? So playing with my 2-year-old, that fills my cup. Playing video games with my husband, that fills my cup. Singing, that fills my cup, right? Saying no fills my cup.
Yes.
Having those professional and personal boundaries is really, really important because the more you're giving and giving and giving and giving, you're not going to have anything to give from. So yeah, just know what fills your cup and go from there.
Well, as we always say, self care is so important, right? It's also pretty much a cliche now. It's like, oh, everybody's like self care. Um, but it's important, right? It's important to be able to, just walk away to take a breath. And, I work in a obviously very sensitive subject. So I take a lot of walks and just time for myself. I spend time, in my Bible. My faith is important to me. I like to paint rocks. I like to color. I like to journal. Just something that gets me out of my own head, because it's very easy for me to get sucked in there and, focus on some negativity. And, I can't be helpful to other people if I'm in a negative spot.
Facts.
All right, so with that, we want to honor our time limit. So with that, we want to thank you. You can give a hand to our panelists. I got to find a better. All right. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for giving us your time and your attention. If you want to connect with me, you can do so on LinkedIn. Just search Casanova TL Green or just Casanova Green. I'll pop up. It's the picture I'm like this. So all right. So thank you all so much and have a wonderful evening.